What what's going on? Why why am I sitting here in the host seat of the Dave K Show? Ladies and gentlemen, my name is E. Alex Patout the third, and yes, Dave made the insane decision to allow me to host this incredibly awesome show. We also, not just me here, but our guest, our friend, our first responder, my boy Derrick is here. Give it up for Derrick. Uh,
Good morning, good evening,
Good
good
afternoon.
wherever you may be.
How you been, man?
Living the dream, brother. How have you been?
The same. Real quick, we could not make this possible if it was not for the PointCoupee Ladies and gentlemen, Point Coupee is the oldest locally owned continuous operating news website since 2012, when the Great Awakening really started to become. They have been Point Coupee's news and information hub. Please check them out at pointcoupeereporter.com. Again, that's pointcoupeereporter.com. Now, if you're not from Louisiana, it could be, what's Point Coupee? Point is spelled Pointe, and Coupee, Coupee. It's a little bit different. It's outside of Louisiana, but as far as how we do things, pointrepeated.com. Reporter, you guys are great. Thank you for allowing us to be here. Man, what a crazy month 2020 has become, right?
Absolutely. It has started out the gate like a running bronco, running bull, however you want to call it, but it has not been boring for sure.
Not at all. And I mean, I remember when I was a kid, timelines seemed to go by little, have an event happen here, a couple months later, an event happen here. I mean, the world in its own self has become its own soap opera, and we don't have to make shit up anymore. It's right in front of us.
Absolutely. It's like you might as well grab your favorite bag of chips, your favorite bag of popcorn, and sit back and watch the roller coaster ride because we're all on it.
And you know, whether you believe, and I say you, I mean our listening audience out there, whether you believe in conspiracies, I like to consider myself a conspiracy realist, okay? Because, I mean, me and Derrick both were in military, and we know that the news may say that a unit is in point B, but they're really in point A.
Correct.
Okay? And that's for operational security. That's for our troops on the ground. That's for our boots on the ground. That's also for the fact that we don't want our other opponent, just like in a football game, to know what gameplay we're about to do. So, being said, so much is being declassified. So much is being released. We now have a guy whose name was Jeffrey Epstein that the whole world knows about, that ABC News just did a whole special on it. And it was ABC News, real quick, that it was the reporter one night on an open mic started talking about what she had been working on in Epstein years before he came out.
Correct. It's like we're moving at such a hyperbolic space. And you mentioned the fact of being a conspiracy realist. I like those terminologies because it's not that we're some crazy crackpot that sits in our basement and all we do is look at what's the latest and greatest on the internet. But there's seems to be a little bit of a nugget of truth in every little story that comes out. Rather it's talking about what happened at Roswell. Well, evidently something happened. Rather you agree to disagree what exactly happened. Something happened. Rather you believe the government storyline of it being just a weather balloon, or you go all the way to the far, far, far side that it was a extraterrestrial crash with living aliens. But there's something did occur, and it evidently was so fascinating that's been a part of our pop culture all the way till now. And it brings into a good point that this year, 2020, is supposed to be the year of big disclosures. You got 35 nations right now that have already announced that they're planning disclosure events within the European Union. You've got our country talking about the secret space program, which is now
Space Force.
Space Force.
You know.
So we got some big events getting ready to pop up on the radar, which is going to be fascinating to watch.
You know, if you don't think that we have been to space just on an international space station or a space shuttle or a Russian rocket, then honestly, it is time to wake up and smell the coffee. I just want y'all real quick, as we're going through this program, Dave of the Dave K Show does a lot of work on these programs, and it doesn't really matter what the Dave K Show is talking about. We're proud to be here, and we would really like for you guys to like this and to share it. It's really interesting when we start opening the world up to other ideas and other possibilities, because if we just look at the same page that we've been told to look at since we were in school, then there's no growth process. We're blessed to be here in South Louisiana and to have the ability to come out and do this and to have these guests here. So we're humbled that you're watching. We just feel you could like to do your part, please, to like and share. That goes for me, that goes for Derrick, that goes for Dave K and all the crew that's part of the Dave K Show.
Absolutely. And before we start into our celestial conversations or our Middle Eastern affairs, let's focus in a little bit on our local current events. What's the big things going on tomorrow that we need to focus in on, like the governor being sworn back in, or LSU can possibly be the national champions all over again?
So yeah, Derrick, good point. So tomorrow, Louisiana puts those who have been elected this past year into office. Governor John Bel Edwards will be sworn in again as the governor of the United States. Billy Nungesser is coming back as our lieutenant governor. My amazing good friend and a humble servant that he is, Jeff Landry, will continue to be our amazing Attorney General, who continues to take down the child pornography in the state of Louisiana.
And human trafficking. He does amazing
complete work on human trafficking. You know, we hear about this stuff all around the world and different aspects of what it's involved with, but we're so blessed to have the highest law enforcement officer of the state of Louisiana on the forefront of this. Absolute forefront. He has his own task force where he's not just utilizing state police, a local law enforcement, a local FBI. He has his own group of men and women who are amazingly trained.
Absolutely.
I know one for specific. Before he went work for Jeff, he was part of the FBI task force. And you just don't take somebody and put them in the FBI task force. You got to be one hot dude to get into a realm like that. And then to go work for the state under child pornography, human trafficking. You know, these guys and girls, they're taking a deep state in Louisiana by storm, y'all. They're taking them down.
Absolutely. And the fact that they take the time to not only do the deed, but they get with local resources that sometimes don't have the funding to be able to do it. So, and I'll use our city, for example. We don't have the high dollar gadgets or the ability to send officers to get all these specialized training. Landry has done everything he can to open his office and his resources to the smallest of municipalities when we need it. So the guy is doing phenomenal things.
You know, I'm gonna just say one more thing about Jeff, and we'll move on. I've been blessed to know Jeff since he was a lawyer in Lafayette, and I was just a waiter at Ruth Chris Steakhouse in Lafayette. And he's a veteran. And we met as like, I'm a veteran, you're a veteran. Then we started talking about some projects we wanted to work on. And then he continued on into going to Washington and then where he is now. But Jeff has never forgot where he came from the cane fields of St. Martinville, working with his hands in the cane field, and then going and serving in Desert Storm and the Louisiana National Guard, and then being part of St. Martin Sheriff's Department as an officer.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
The training that he had from growing up, working with his hands, to service to country and state, and coming back to serve his community, and now his country and state again.
In the highest office.
In the highest offices. And I will always be a supporter of Jeff Landry. That's Alex Patout saying that right here. I know, Derrick, you'll probably feel the same way too.
Absolutely.
Moving on right now, we're going to talk about some. Say again. Oh, and Dave K supports Jeff Landry. Let me say that again. The Dave K show is behind our Attorney General, Jeff Landry. Ladies and gentlemen, LSU tomorrow. Go Tigers.
I got $100 that the Tigers win tomorrow.
You got $100. I got $1,500 that I don't have. That is, I'm betting the Tigers are going to win tomorrow. Y'all, LSU, Coach Ed Orgeron, got to say that right, down the bayou from La Rose. If there's anyone who wants to make a movie that's going to, like, get some mega awards, make a movie about the season of the LSU Tigers. I mean, the storyline of this team is something to be put on the screen. And then we had a tragedy.
In the process.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, was it last week or the weekend before?
Weekend before.
Weekend before, while the Tigers were in the process of playing their last bowl game before the championship, the daughter-in-law to the defensive coach aircraft went down just a few moments before it took off, or after it took off, sorry. And sadly, she deceased. Tragic. Absolutely tragic.
She was a sports reporter.
Correct.
She had worked for a bunch of sports companies, and I think she was working for a news department in New Orleans. There was a young man, a 15-year-old. There was a mother. There was the pilot, and there was one more. But there was a massive loss of life of people who were very influential, who served other people.
Absolutely.
Without thinking of self. And that's the hardest part.
Right.
Loss of life is always hard, but when you lose people that were about serving other people before serving self, that's when it strikes home. And that's what it really was, the core. And, you know, Coach O told the father-in-law before the game, and, you know, you and I, we know what it's like to have to tell a family member of a loss of another one.
Right.
And Coach O gave him that call. It's up to you, brother, what you want to do. And he said, I'm here for my state. I'm here for my Tigers. This is what she would have wanted.
Right. And that speaks a lot to the caliber of coach. It speaks a lot to the caliber of the person that he was.
And that team was playing for those souls that went down. And I tell y'all, if y'all don't believe in angels, there were angels that day at that game. There were angels at that game that day. And we're coming to New Orleans tomorrow night, baby.
Absolutely.
I mean, and it doesn't snow much in Louisiana, but the state will shut down for a snowstorm. But LSU, tomorrow, we're closed. Louisiana is putting the closed sign because we're getting ready for a party. It's going to be a great time. Win or lose, it's going to be one hell of a game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All I can say is I hope Clemson brought their game shorts on because it's going to be one heck of a game tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Other news. Let's talk about with your experience in the Army.
Yep.
Let's talk about what do you feel the current international situation going on with Iran right now?
So that was a roller coaster. That whole news story and everything moved at the speed of light. And what I mean by that is it went from the protest at the embassy and everybody calling it Trump's Benghazi to him taking out General, and I'm going to mess up his name, so I'm going to give him the nickname we used to call him, Salami. And
For real?
Yeah.
That was y'all really had a nickname for this dude?
yes, we did. And it was a nickname out of complete disrespect for the dude. He was the commander of the Quds Force. The entire time I was operating in Iraq, it was known that the Iraqi Revolutionary Guard, more specifically the Quds Force, which handled all their asymmetrical warfare operations in the Mideast, was bringing in these EFPs, or explosively formed projectiles, and teaching Shiite militias how to employ them on the roadside. And this had been going on since probably about 05-ish, and had resulted in many both U.S. as well as Iraqi soldiers losing limbs, losing their lives. I think they figured it somewhere between 600 and 650 that were killed on the U.S. side of the fact, and somewhere in around 1,000, 1,200 that wound up losing significant limbs. I lost friends to the on my last tour, so firsthand we knew what the effects of these things were. So to see what Trump had done, me personally, I would say good riddance. However, what it did show was that there are certain individuals, certain entities within the media, within our government, and within our populace that no matter how bad somebody is, because you have to remember, it goes beyond 2005. This was a guy that was within the architecture and helped design the Khobar Towers incident in the 80s. This guy had his hands in so many operations, even against his own people, and putting down revolutions. Like, this man was truly a dark individual within the Middle East. And at no point in time did the media ever show any of the celebrations that occurred in Iraq that night when they realized that we'd got them. At no point in time did they show any of the celebrations here in the United States of the Iranian dissidents, which we do have a significant population here in the U.S. They didn't show any of the Iranian dissident populations that live in Canada that celebrated his death. Right. They only focused in on the negative. Right. And that was truly a sad thing, because it shows that no matter what our current president does, that there is going to be people that are going to be completely anti-Trump just because he is the president, not for what he does.
Let me stop you right there, Derrick, because before we go, is that you? Yeah. Is that one of your fans?
One of the fire department.
Do you need to go?
No.
We got a fire? We could bring the Dave K Show mobile right now. We could do our own version of Point Coupee cops and first responders. We can bring this on the road. We could do this. We could do this. Hey, let me just stop you real quick in this. I want you to tell the folks at home your background in the military, besides just being a U.S. Army veteran, and what makes you vetted to talk about what you're talking about.
Not a problem. So I've got over 11 years in the military. I spent my first bit of my time in my military, which was about 3 years, in the United States Army with 4th Brigade, 10th Mountain. I spent the rest of my remainder time in the Louisiana Army National Guard. I deployed in 2010 with the Louisiana National Guard, and on that deployment in particular was in Iraq, Baghdad area. And I had the pleasure of working and being attached with the United States Army Special Operations and with a group called CJ SOTF, which is Combined Joint Special Operations Task Force. And I was privy and had the pleasure to basically work with some of the best men that I've ever had to work with. In 2012, 2013, I redeployed with the National Guard to Afghanistan and was working with 307th Sapper Battalion, which was an airborne sapper battalion in Afghanistan, and went from all over Helmand Province to Kandahar Province to Bagram. So when I talk about certain things when it comes to Middle Eastern affairs, it's because I pay very, very close attention to it. I speak from it from experience because, like, for example, when I was working with special operations, the stuff I can talk about was either A, work in direct action, work doing QRF or driving or doing something of that nature to support those operations, or I was in what they call subsen, setting up the eye in the sky, which are drone coverage for direct action operations.
Now, real quick, for the folks at home who don't have any kind of military aspect or experiences, as we know, everything is abbreviations. Could you go back and tell
QRF?
Yeah, what all that
Quick Reaction
stands
Force.
for? Okay.
So basically, quick reaction forces, if they get into trouble, take an IED strike, or get ambushed, or something goes wrong while they're hitting a target house with a high value target, then we come in there to help them out.
Roger that. Roger that. Hey, myself and all our viewers want to tell you, Derrick, thank you so much for your service. Thank you for what you have done, for the sacrifices that you have made, for the sacrifices you continue to make. People like you, men and women, it allows us to remember that we can close our eyes at night, because not everybody can. Not everybody can.
Correct.
We here in America are blessed to know that there is a watch that's being stood by an American service member every day and every night. And it allows us to truly understand what it means to have our freedom.
Absolutely.
Freedom isn't free.
No, it's not.
It's not. And we have to remember that in that freedom, we were born into some of it, but there are people in this world that were not. And I've learned with my experiences that those who were not born into freedom but gained it have a better sense of what it truly means than those who inherited it. And I think us who inherited it, when we go out and serve and leave our homeland and are able to put our feet on a foreign ground that's not a United States soil in service to the United States, we truly have a personal idea of what it means to know what we were inherited with and not take it for granted.
Right. And the thing is it also gives you a complete respect to what you do have. Because a lot of these countries have far less than what we'd be used to having. But then you also see a part of humanity that we're lacking too.
Right.
Because you see how they treat their elderly as compared to what we do.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things, well, they go, and I've heard comments made by certain individuals, well, they do this and they do that, they're barbarians, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's actually kind of the contrary. The average Iraqi or the average Afghani, they're decent people. It's like I've never seen any of them mistreat their homeless population. On the contrary, there's very few homeless. And if there is, it's because they choose to be.
Right.
I've never seen them truly mistreat, and I'm talking about good population. I've never seen them mistreat an elderly person.
Right.
And that's something to speak highly of when you talk about a society, because you can look back and reflect not just the good of your society, but the negative, and go, we can learn something from that. We can learn something.
Right. And that's the thing, is that I don't care what news media it is, okay, left or right. There is an aspect of how they show the demographic of what they are.
Right.
When you know, with your personal experiences of boots on the ground, of interacting with this society, is being the contrary.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to that aspect of what you and I know is the reality to what the, not just American population, but the world in general doesn't have a grasp at, because you weren't privy to it. Now, in 2020, little things are being let go that you are being privy to. And I just got to say, how y'all feeling out there?
Right.
How are y'all feeling to know that these things have been taking place underneath and had no idea? I mean, we go Epstein, you go Weinstein, you go all these aspects. I mean, we now have pictures of Bill Clinton standing at the top of the stairwell, getting onto that Lolita aircraft that Jeffrey Epstein had Giselle, I don't know, but she's weird, Maxwell, right next to him.
Correct.
Okay? And knowing that it wasn't just him going up there, taking a picture, coming down. He got into that, I'm not going to curse, he got into that aircraft, not just once, but about, I think they said he flew it at least 7 to 6 times, all around the world. And look, when you go into Hooters, right?
Right.
You ain't there for just the wings, right, my boy?
This is true.
Let's call a spade, right?
Call a duck, a spade, a spade.
And so, let's just say he wasn't there for just the plane ride, okay, y'all? There were things going on that aircraft with females that were under the age, and that's it, and that's enough to let the things start falling. And God, has that castle started to break, huh?
Yeah, everything's finally starting with the Me Too movement, with everything else that's been going on.
Right.
And to be honest with you, it's about time. And at some point in time, hopefully we'll get past all this and we'll be better as a society, because I'm 100% for women being able to do what men do without having any obfuscations or anything like that as far as their gender.
Right.
Like, if you're a cook and I'm a cook and there's a female cook, we all should have the equal wage. And if she's a superior cook, she should be making more money than us.
Right.
Because it's based on quality.
And it's funny you bring that, and that's been my world pretty much my life. Growing up in the culinary, growing up in a restaurant business, going to culinary school. Shit, I'm part of the amazing team of the City Club of Baton Rouge, and it doesn't matter who's on that line.
Right.
It don't matter creed, color, sex. It's about a mission. We're here to rock this shit out. Someone's on the fryer. Someone's working salads. Someone's on the grill. Someone's on saute. We got 100 on the books tonight. Let's do this shit. And let's do it to the best of our ability. And so that when the people out there are tasting the amazing things that are going on, they're like, wow, this is amazing.
Right.
And it's only able to happen when you step out of your ego, when you step out of the I'm a chef, I'm a cook, I create. Nah, dude, you're a servant. And you're serving your man that's sitting out there. And that's what it's about. And if we could all learn that, you know, as first responders, as people who have served their country, we have to learn that, because when we raise our right hand, okay, it's not about us anymore whatsoever.
It's about the mission.
It's about the mission. It ain't about the individual anymore.
Exactly.
And if we could just fucking get that.
Well, if society as a whole can grasp that concept. It's like we're in 2020 and we're still having these ideological discussions on, and I hate to say it like this, we're still having these ideological discussions on race. We're still having these ideological discussions on ideology. We're still having these ideological discussions on religion and gender. And to be honest with you, they shouldn't be happening anymore. You should be looking at the person's quality. Okay, are they a decent person? Yes, check the box. Okay. Are they capable of doing the job that they're trying to do? Yes, check the box. Then, okay, if they've matched those two checks, then that's the only thing that should matter. But still, as a society, we still have issues with meeting those obligations without having these other biases. And if we could figure it out on a social level between people, then our countries can figure that out on a bigger level.
You know, I completely agree. And as you're talking, I'm listening, obviously. But my brain is moving a little bit. And I'm thinking, you know, when we went to boot camp, okay, we all came from so many different places.
Oh, yeah.
So many economical backgrounds, okay? But it didn't fucking matter.
Oh, no.
It didn't. It did not. We were trained to learn that the person next to us is just as important as
the next one.
As the next one, and how you feel about yourself. And if we could have a societal I hope I'm saying the word right. I'm not the smartest person on the block, y'all, but a society aspect of boot camp and really just learn.
You would think that we already would, and that would be school, but truthfully, it's not. It's a
Why?
hard. It's,
Why? That's the big W. Is right because we know it could be done. We know it could be done, but why isn't it done?
Because what society has turned our schools into is a popularity contest. Oh, I'm superior than this one because I have the latest and greatest jeans, or I have the latest and greatest shoes. No matter what, we seem to keep going into this class system.
Right.
That's arcane. That when the Pilgrims came to the United States, they came here for two reasons. And that was for religious freedom and to break away from the class systems of royalty, monarchs, and all that in Europe.
Right.
But yet, in today's society, we're still creating these class systems. Like you hear it in the news all the time. You got the lower class, the middle class, the high class, and the top 1%. Okay, it's 2020. How do we still have a class system?
Right. Because there's a status quo.
Absolutely.
Because there's a fucking status quo. Because somebody says I gotta have, and fuck the have-nots.
Absolutely.
Right.
And the thing is Trump just created, and we've all known that there's been a secret space program.
Wait, hold on. You just brought up the SSP. We hadn't talked about that yet, huh?
Correct.
You want to get into that, huh?
I'm about to go there.
We're about to go there, y'all.
And the reason why I brought up the society thing first is, prior to the 90s, it was Majestic 12. It was the Roswell, the council that spoke to Truman and all that. Now, then you get to the SSP, which if you look at the patents is the United States Navy.
Right.
Now, President Trump announces that he's starting the 6th branch of service, the Space Force,
right,
which the Air Force for years had their different squadrons that was part of the space program. Under Ronald Reagan years, that was the Star Wars program, creating satellites that can do GPS. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a part of the military that was originally designed for the military. The internet was originally designed for the military. All these things that we use for our common conveniences, these things were designed by the secret space program for military applications.
You know what? I love these three things that were invented for the military around the World War II time. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you ready for this? M&Ms. Did y'all know that? Did you know that M&Ms was actually made for the military so they could have chocolate transported that in the extreme conditions of heat, the shell could encase the chocolate and not allow it to melt all over. That aspect that it says with the slogan, okay, that literally was made for military. Velcro was made for the military, and the zipper was first made for the military, and then the civilian world had it after it was needed.
Oh, absolutely. But it's like when you talk about these things and you talk about 2020, there's 35, like you can go look it up. There's different stories all over the web. There's different stories from different newspaper outlets, from Sun UK, BBC, that there are 35 different nations right now that are doing full-blown disclosures of all their UFO files and secret programs. And that's in the European Union alone.
And this isn't like some stuff they were reading in like a tabloid or looking at a tabloid website.
Right.
This is real. Matter of fact, knock on wood, like this table. Okay.
Yeah. They're like, you know what? This year is the year that we're just going to go ahead and be done with it. We're going to reveal everything because it's cheaper to release things out in the public's eye versus creating these clandestine programs and paying all these top dollars, versus now we can release it to their versions of NASA or European space program to do what they do, versus the clandestine, which obviously costs more money to keep things secret.
Right.
And nothing ever stays secret forever. And the reality of it is the ultimate goal for human beings since the beginning of time when we were on the African continent was to spread out to the European continent, to spread out to the Americas, to spread out. Now we've crossed this globe. We look to the stars now and go, we're going to go to the moon, and then we're going to go to Mars. That's our objective goal.
But right. And I'm gonna stop you right there, my boy, because you know what the F I'm about to say right now. Okay. So that is the aspect of the unclassified journey.
The unclassified journey, yes.
But we already been to the moon with a base. We already been at Mars with a base.
Yes.
So there is enough evidence to prove this.
Talking about Project Paperclip.
We're talking about Project Paperclip. We're talking about free energy. We're talking about that if you can do this, then you can do that. Like
Project
y'all.
Looking Glass.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is what gets me. Oh, we know that in the 90s, they came out and said that they cloned a goat.
And then they talked about the cloning program.
Then they just then that was it. Congratulations, guys. We cloned an animal. We're done with it. Let's close the books. No. I mean, seriously. What was the whole purpose? Y'all watch Star Wars. If you know Star Wars, then you know how the script goes.
Absolutely.
Okay? The Clone Wars, that was some real shit. And what I mean by that is the ability to create life utilizing DNA without having to be inside of a womb of a female human being.
Well, what was the joke in the late 90s when they started in vitro fertilization and everything else? Oh, you're just a test tube baby?
Right.
Right? So it was like the thing that we have to focus on. And I think in order for us, because like we're in the 2020s and you hear the joke, let's bring back the roaring 20s.
Oh.
And like that's the big, you see
right,
the big,
right.
the big meme that's all over.
And look, what was going on in the roaring 20s? It was prohibition, right?
Well, there was prohibition, but there was a sense of societal enlightenment because that was, for lack of a better terminology, considered the Victorian era. Tesla, everybody was becoming enlightened. Everybody was starting to open their horizons.
Right.
So I think in order for us to do a repeat, for lack of a better terminology, a repeat of what our forefathers did in the original 1920s, and not saying that our forefathers were 100% right, because there was still mistreatment of blacks and stuff like that going on all over the world. But European society was actually light years ahead of us.
It's not just blacks. It's anything that's different from the person who's they're looking at.
Like if you look at America in 1920,
right,
everybody that was not Anglo-American European was treated differently. Jews, blacks, and different.
Right.
You looked at Europe at the same time, it was a total different gambit. They actually almost had like a reversal in the 30s of some of their progressive steps. And it's very fascinating psychologically when you look at the psychological changes of society. And part of that was because of World War I and seeing how everybody came together to fight an evil. There's a whole lot of paradigms there. But in order for our civilization, for lack of a better terminology, to progress, and we done amazing things from 1947 to 2000. Look at how our technology jumped. In order for us to be as successful in these next 70 years like we did the past 70 years, we have got to get past everything that makes us different. We got to get past all these petty nation things. And I'm not saying, oh, we got to have a one world government. Absolutely not. I think sovereignty and nationality is a big thing because that speaks to a country's heritage. However, you can do what I'm saying without having a one world government. I can look at you as France and say you can contribute to us as America and still keep those borders. Does that make sense?
Oh, no, it makes a lot of sense. And it reminds me of when I talk about disclosure to people, okay? And when I say disclosure, I'm talking about the whole kit and caboodle. I'm talking about
you got to disclose everything.
I'm talking about the extraterrestrials. I'm talking about Dracos. I'm talking about reverse engineering. I'm talking about all this. But in the end, And look, I'm gonna give a plug personally. Me, Alex Patout, and I think Derrick, you can go with this too.
Correct.
Above Majestic, the movie that Corey Good and Dave Wilcox put together, and then they just did Cosmic Secret.
Yes.
Okay.
Both of them were phenomenal.
Okay, look, come for the aliens, but stay for the self-discovery. We got a caller. What? Yeah, let's go. D, we got a caller. Somebody wants to talk to us.
Send it in.
Send it in. Make it so. But, I mean, as I was saying, I'm waiting for the caller to come in.
Am I on air?
Hello?
Yes, you are.
Hello. Hey, great show tonight, guys. Great show tonight. I have a quick question for you.
Yeah, guys.
All right, so, we hear about 2020 being the year of disclosure. You guys are talking about disclosure right now and everything. I want to ask you, Derrick and Alex, if you know anything about, disclosure coming. We talk about reptilians. We talk about all kind of stuff, reverse engineering, like you said. Recently in, I think it was either Shreveport, Bossier City, somewhere up there.
Yeah.
They had
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Hey, caller, thanks for the call. Great
right.
question.
I'll hang up and take my answer off the air.
Roger that. Thank you so much. So what the caller's talking about recently, right after we started forward progress with Iran, there were lights seen over Bossier around where the Air Force is.
Correct. Very similar to the lights that was seen in Arizona.
Yeah. And look, this is just me personally. I looked at the video.
Mm-hmm.
I saw some stuff that was like, but I also saw some tail lights.
Correct.
From helos. And look, you and I both, with our military background.
When I saw it, here's what I immediately thought.
Okay.
And I watched it 2 or 3 times. And what I was thinking distance-wise is that was a flare cast off.
Okay.
And that was just my personal thought process. Not every video that I look at, I'm going to immediately think of, oh, there's something paranormal about it. But that's where, I don't know, I'm an immediate skeptic to everything.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, this is also how I'm going with it, how I really see it. It was over an Air Force base, right?
Correct.
We now know declassified technology has been released by the United States Navy that is being utilized within the U.S. Space Force.
Correct.
This is plain fact. This is not conspiracy whatsoever. Space Force is real under the Department of the United States Air Force. You know, you and I, we both did joint operations with other branches of the service to learn how to better work together. The Navy
Correct.
learned how to work with the Marine Corps and vice versa.
Correct.
This is maybe that aspect, that time, where the Space Force, under the cloak of darkness, because we don't want to freak some people out just yet, okay?
Right.
Are doing operations with the United States Air Force. And, you know, they're doing it in Louisiana, and it's just a test, just to play with some things, because the majority of the B-52s
Are out at Barksdale.
are out of Barksdale.
There's an experimental unit out at Barksdale. There's a huge training range there, so
Right.
it's logical.
Right.
So when you look at logics-wise, it's possible. Just like if people record something strange over at Eglin, you're immediately going to go possibly something experimental because that's an experimental site.
And, you know, Vandenberg Air Force in California, there's always been stuff around there on the West Coast. So, I mean, our caller is really brings up a really interesting point about disclosure. That little by little, this is how the government maybe infiltrates into the consciousness of mainstream America about the reality of what things really are.
Right.
So you can catch it on a cell phone. You send that video off to a bunch of people. Then they catch another thing on a cell phone, send that video off to a bunch of people. And it just starts awakening the consciousness that what we thought isn't what the reality really is.
Well, look at what they did, 5 months ago with the F-18 videos they released on national television going, hey, look, here's these fighter pilots that were out on a training mission and captured.
Right. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I've done some research on that, and I've listened to a lot of people talk about those videos that were released from the Nimitz.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have the deep state, and the deep state has their own narrative of how they want disclosure to be, okay? And then you have people who are the free-thinking, the enlightened, the ones who've actually worked under these programs and their storyline.
Mhm.
Okay, you have a storyline that has some truth and realism to it, but then it takes a turn of wanting you to be afraid, to be scared, and just like when the movie Saw, the little green man is going to shoot a laser and blow up my house.
Right.
Which, in the reality of the situation, we know that where our advancement are to their advancement, we're a little ant. Okay?
Correct.
And why would they want to destroy an ant? They have no reason to, but if we can teach... hold on, let me finish, D.
Yeah.
If we can teach our dogs and cats to work with us, and dolphins,
Correct.
in service in the military,
Yes.
why are we not to think that an extraterrestrial being is not going to want to work with us and to build a humanity of love, to build a meditative consciousness to love and to forgive ourselves and to forgive each other and to build that fabric of nation unification like you were talking about?
Correct.
That we are all the same, that we all have trauma, and that we all should love.
Correct.
Because in the end, isn't what world peace what this is all about? And in the Catholic faith, it says, in world peace, the Virgin Mary will come back.
So,
And that Jesus will come back.
Correct.
And yet so many things are opening up realms and seeing things that look like a Jesus, that look like a Mary. Visions are happening again.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% in agreement. Like, I don't see where a civilization that is light years ahead of us would be anywhere advantageous for any type of conflict.
Right.
It wouldn't make any sense whatsoever because you'd have to think about it in a logical sense. And what I mean by a logical sense, if you're talking about a civilization that can travel light years, travel distances, if they're coming in contact with a new species, they're not going to be, let me smash the ants.
Right.
They've evolved.
Right. We got to cut it short. I just found that Dave K found out that I'm hosting right now, and he either wants to say thank you or kick my ass. So we need to get out of here. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Happy New Year to first off, Happy New Year to all y'all. We haven't really talked about that.
Right.
You know,
Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year's, baby. And just thank you for your service. Thank you for your continued service that you do. Thank you for Dave K and Dave K's service with Acadian Ambulance as a first responder.
Right.
Y'all, we got a lot of things coming up. I have a lot of things coming up. I am happy to say that I will be going. Alex Patout III will be going to the Laura Eisenhower show with her podcast. There's a good chance that we may have John D'Souza coming on the Dave K show. And I'm just going to put this out real quick, but I got my dad, Louisiana famous chef Alex Patout, has agreed to come and sit down and talk about some stories of what it was like putting together the restaurant business outside Louisiana, but in Los Angeles, and the evolution of Louisiana food that has carried around the world. Derrick, closing in, you have anything you want to add?
Okay.
We got a comment. We got a comment. What's the comment?
Yes, I think that anybody who is in pop culture has watched the Transformer movie. Now, I don't believe that there would be such thing, and this is just my personal opinion, a race of robots. Now, artificial intelligence that's created.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah.
So many people have talked about artificial ETAI.
Correct.
Okay?
Artificial ETAI.
Okay. And it's way too many people to show that it's not that it's not possible. It opens up. It makes so much sense.
Yeah, like for example,
And
right now our technology.
Right.
I'm going to use this as an analogy.
Right.
Right now our technology, we can't send a human being, or have not yet been able to send a human being outside, we could send somebody to Mars and then survive that trip and come back. But like, let's say past our galaxy, can we send somebody and them survive the trip, do what they need to do, get the information back to us? Absolutely not. So what is our solution to that? We send probes. So an advanced species or an advanced civilization that's further ahead of us, would they have something like a transformer that can navigate? Well, yeah, because look at what we do on Mars right now, the Mars rover.
Right.
It's just a small version
Right.
of the transformer.
Right.
So that's what you would call a nugget of truth
That's
in pop culture.
That's a declassified version of the transformer.
Correct. It's a D-class version because it's a probe. It's a way for them to navigate. And the other portion of that is people, well, would they have it for nefarious means? Well, we do. We create robots, i.e. drones. We created them for the ground in the ground warrior programs to create drones that are weaponized. So it's realistic that civilizations that have surpassed us, that are type 1 or type 2 civilizations, they've gone past the point where they're sending their own biological beings into war. They're sending in robots to fight their fights and
then
solve their
this is
problems.
where Space Force comes in on the initial aspect of what it's really all about,
Mm-hmm.
is to make sure that we can protect this Earth against nefarious AIs, nefarious ETs who have their own ego agenda that's coming into play.
Correct. And that's the whole thought process. So, yeah.
You know, in the long run, we're about to end this real short, but history has always dictated, when I say that, the writers of history have always dictated what the future learns about the past, the present learns about the past.
Yeah, the historian writes the book.
Right.
Or the victor
The victor writes the book.
Yeah.
What is the world going to say about Donald J. Trump
That's a really interesting question.
100 years from now?
That's a very interesting question because if it's the Nancy Pelosi's of the world, we're going to have the worst president next to Hitler. However, if it's a more non-biased approach, then let's be real about it. This is the first president in my lifetime, and I think you would agree, that's actually kept true to his word for 99.9% of his campaign promises.
Correct.
Obviously,
and then some. And then some. I mean, absolutely. As a veteran who's in the VA system,
correct.
in 1 year now, I have access to some of the best health care out there, not through the VA.
Right.
Because they're trying to fix the VA.
Mission Act.
Right.
Mission Act.
I
right.
mean-
one word.
Yeah. And if it took this long to get it, and it didn't have to.
Right.
But there's a reason why I think they put Donald J. Trump into that seat to allow these things to happen. This man is so connected on so many levels to so many things. We know that his great uncle pretty much had the patents to Tesla, Tesla. Okay. I mean,
It's fascinating. It's really
way too fascinating.
It's way too fascinating. It really is. Now, and me personally, I'm not one of those guys that's like little d or little r. When I look at somebody, I look at the totality of somebody. Now, do I agree with everything that Trump does? No, because I can be one of the first people to say that some of the things he's tweeted has been absolutely embarrassing. And it's like, come on, bruh. Had you kept your mouth shut, been a little bit more humble, then you'd be smooth sailing. However, you can't just look at a person based on their tweets, because if that'd be the case, we probably wouldn't get along with 99.9% of the people.
But you can't look at his tweets as a one-dimensional thing.
Absolutely. That's what
This is where the smartness of this man comes into play. This is where the aspect of the intelligence group that he has comes into play. Everything that he writes or says is deliberate. There is no play into it.
Yeah.
If there's play, it's to fool the other side.
Correct.
It's to watch this hand right here while this hand is doing something else. It will always be point counterpoint. We'll end with this coming up next week. This coming week, the Democrats in the House are going to be releasing the impeachment to the Senate. Okay.
And see, I have a deep problem with impeachment, because basically what the Democratic Party did this go around was they weaponized the impeachment process. And what I mean by that is show me a high crime or misdemeanor that Trump did. Because the only thing that this thing showed me with the whole Ukraine thing was that you had Joe Biden actually do what they're accusing Donald J. Trump of.
Right.
With the whole Russian thing, there was no factual evidence of any actual collusion by him of colluding with the Russians. So on both instances, the Democrats lost in a big way, but they're still going through with impeachment. But if you look back past that, from day one, the man won the election. They were screaming impeachment before he even raised his right hand.
But hold on, I'll tell you why he sets that shit up on purpose. It's a point counterpoint. He knows how to play. He wants you to keep his name on your tongue all the time. Because if you keep that name going or any name going, this is marketing. This is advertising. This is how you keep movies. This is how you keep television shows. Okay?
Yeah.
If Trump is always being talked about, then Trump is on the conscious. So when it comes down to vote, you're going to vote for the person that you've been listening to who has been just, doing all these things.
I can see your point, but what I also see is I see the Democratic Party literally tearing itself apart.
Which is exactly what he wanted to do in the first place. Put him on the stand, okay? He wants to sit on that chair and raise his right hand and then just let it fall. He wants it because in the end, it allows him and the agenda of enlightenment and disclosure to truly start to take place.
Right.
Remember, his people that our president has always looked up to is Ronald Reagan, President Kennedy.
Correct. And mind you, and people should take note of that he has two people that he looks up to, a Republican and a Democrat, and that speaks volumes.
Correct.
It doesn't mean that he is strictly Republican-minded. It doesn't mean he is strictly Democrat-minded. He is probably one of the most independent-minded persons in the world. Democrats talk about changing the justice system for people. He changed the justice system for people. He said we need to revamp the justice system, and he actually achieved that. That's something that Democrats ran on, and he fixed. Not a Democrat politician. And I wouldn't even say truthfully, because to call Trump a politician would be that he's a career politician. A businessman went in there and changed something that was significant, because there has to be big changes within our judicial system, because our judicial system is just another way to circumvent slavery in this country.
Okay. That brings up a really interesting point right there. Really interesting point. I think we're coming up to a couple minutes left, I think. We're going 5 minutes into overdrive, ladies and gentlemen. And I think that word says exactly how I feel right now, overdrive. I want to just talk real quick about the last 24 hours I've had. Yesterday, I worked, we worked Saturday, and then Friday I had two doubles. So I was there at 7 in the morning in the kitchen till about 9 o'clock at night with a break for a little bit.
Right.
And then yesterday, worked in the kitchen. We did about 70 last night, and I jumped in my car, went to Broussard, Louisiana. I want to give a shout-out to the 25th anniversary of one of Louisiana's most amazing rock bands. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Spank the Monkey. That is the name of the band. Not making it up. They did it on purpose. These guys have amazing, amazing music. And got to be at Route 92 last night and hang out with the band and my amazing, amazing friend and brother, Jason Hugay. Jason is owner and restaurateur and amazing chef of the Steamboat Warehouse Restaurant in Washington, Louisiana. If y'all ever in that way, please give Jason some love. Chef Paul Prudhomme, who invented the dish blackened redfish, swore to this restaurant when he was alive. That's how good this place is, and that's how great of a chef Jason Hugay is.
Right.
So I just want to say thank you to Heath Ronsonet, to Jason Hugay, to Crystal Landry, and Corey, and for seeing all my old friends back in the new